Doesn't have a birth certificate, or he hasn't shown it. He has what's called a certificate of live birth. Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country. He may not have been born in this country.
In September 2016, then-candidate Donald Trump finally admitted that former President Obama was born in the United States. But before that, he spent 5 years promoting a conspiracy theory. Fast forward now to 8 years later, his own son is reviving those outrageous birther comments, this time taking aim at Senator Kamala Harris. Don Jr. retweeting a conservative commentator who is falsely claiming that Kamala Harris is not an American, but instead half Indian and half Jamaican. The younger Trump has since deleted his tweet, telling NBC News folks were misconstruing the intent of his tweet. NBC road warrior Vaughn Hilliard is following the story in San Francisco, where Senator Harris is now marching in her hometown's annual Pride Parade. Vaughn, how is Harris's campaign responding to this latest online attack?
Yeah, it's been quite a 48 hours since that debate and since that tweet started going around. Don Jr. initially retweeted it before deleting that tweet. A spokeswoman for Kamala Harris, the presidential candidate, put out a statement saying, quote, "This is the same type of racist attacks used to attack Barack Obama. It didn't work then, and it won't work now." The other Democratic candidates in this race all put out tweets condemning these types of suggestions. Of course, Kamala Harris was born just across the bay here over in Oakland, and as I said, it's been a big 48 hours since her Thursday night debate performance. Her campaign announcing that she had raised $2 million in just the 24 hours after appearing on that stage in Miami. Of course, we're now in the middle of San Francisco, going down Market Street. She used to be the district attorney here, used to be the attorney general, and of course a U.S. senator. We're going to ask Kamala Harris here as she's going along this parade right here. Hi, Senator. I got to ask you, what is the significance of Pride for you? Why be here?
For years and years, to celebrate the fight for equality, for the diversity, for inclusion. This is about fighting for civil rights. It's about celebrating the accomplishments that we've achieved, but also knowing we have work ahead.
Compared to your could-be Republican rival, what is the significance of your presence?
Well, I mean, this is a town that gave birth in many ways to the movement for LGBTQ equality. And we have a current occupant of the White House who has been silent on so many issues that have included an increase in hate crime, a policy that has been about excluding and kicking out transgender men and women from the military who have dedicated a life of service to fight for our and defend our democracy. You could go on and on. And so I think this is a moment where everyone knows we want to have champions for equality in our country, and we don't currently have that in the White House.
Senator, thanks. Enjoy the parade. We'll talk to you later.
Pride. Happy Pride.
Morgan, we're going to talk to the senator about some of the other issues around this campaign. Later here this afternoon, she'll be speaking over at San Francisco City Hall at the conclusion of this parade. Morgan?
Well, as the senator said, happy Pride, happy progress. All right, Vaughn Hilliard, thanks so much for joining us live from San Francisco. For more, let's bring in Jake Maccoby, former Obama administration official and Democratic strategist, Boyd Matheson, former chief of staff to Republican Senator Mike Lee, and Nayyera, former White House senior director and former Staff Department senior advisor in the Obama administration. Jake, let's start with you. Obama faced similar attacks from Trump beginning in 2011. And how is Harris's campaign now handling that compared to what you all dealt with back then?
Well, I think now we sort of have the benefit of having seen this once before. Look, it illustrates the choice facing people in this election. We spent the last week talking about which Democrat was best on matters of race and civil rights, and then Don Jr. pops up to remind us that his family has been demonizing black and brown people for the last 50 years. I mean, we first heard about Donald Trump back in 1973 when he was denying apartments to black people. He used to put a letter C on their applications for colored. He took out a full-page ad against the Central Park Five, who were innocent, saying that they should be put to death. And then he went around saying that the first black president was not born in this country. And that president, if you'll recall, won 2 terms, including the popular vote, twice. So this is just reheated racism from the same family that's been spewing this garbage for decades.
You talk about this reheated racism and demonizing black and brown people. Boyd, what about you? I mean, something I've been wondering this entire time. Are there any consequences? Could Republicans face any negative ramifications for Don Jr.'s since deleted tweet?
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is that we have to get past this culture of contempt across the board. And so this tweet by Don Jr. certainly is not helpful to anybody. And I don't care about party, left, right, center, or anything in between. This is about a culture of contempt in this country where it makes it okay to make these kinds of statements. That contempt where you believe in the worthlessness of another individual, because that's what allows you to say whatever you want to them about Twitter or blow up their Facebook feed. And we have to get beyond that, because the greatness of this country is that oneness is not sameness. And I don't care what party it is, both parties need to get focused on the issues that really matter to those people, because we are not nearly as divided as a nation as I think many of our people on both sides of the aisle in Washington want us to believe, because that's what keeps them in power, that's what keeps them in control, it's what allows them to raise millions and millions of dollars for campaigns. We all have to get beyond wanting a wedge issue for a political purpose and get to the bridge issues that actually will solve the problems for the American people.
Well, Boyd, you call it a culture of contempt, but I wonder if it's a culture of complacency. Are we doing enough, and are we doing the right things when we see matters of disinformation? For example, Nayyera, after conservative commentator Ali Alexander tweeted that false claim about Harris's nationality, BuzzFeed reported that his post was copied word for word and then tweeted by a network of bot accounts. So we should note, of course, that NBC News has not yet independently confirmed this report, and it is still unclear who's behind those accounts. But if this is true, could the culprits face any legal implications?
Here's what we do know, and this is based on the 2016 election and the assessment of 17 intelligence agencies, that Russia intervened in our election in very particular ways by trying to use bots and fake accounts and fake narratives online, Facebook, social media, Twitter, to promote the divisions that already exist in our society. So whether that was Black Lives Matter or other anti-Hillary, we're starting to see that as the next generation of this birther movement that started with Donald Trump in 2008. Now, back then in 2008 in the primaries, we did have in the Obama campaign an opponent in John McCain and Mitt Romney then who did not stoop to that level themselves. The fact that you have Russian interests and Donald Trump's interests as leader of the Republican Party right now aligning is very concerning. They are playing to the deepest, most ugliest parts of American society. So it pays to be vigilant, not only about what we're seeing and reading online, but also about what that means and the intentionality behind it. And the intention is clearly not just to sow division among Americans, but to create an identity of America that is, you have to be white, you have to have been here for several generations, and nothing else would matter if you are of the Trumpian mindset.
Well, so hold on. Speaking of intention, though, weren't we warned about this before? I mean, Jake, this is the type of online disinformation campaign that Robert Mueller warned Americans about. So if the Trump administration doesn't address this national security issue, what political implications could Republicans face?
Yeah, and they've said over and over again that they're not addressing it. Donald Trump spent a good part of 2 years trying to deny that there was any influence from Russia at all. So we'll see what Republicans will do about this. My gut sense right now is that they will do nothing, which is why this isn't a both sides problem, and we can't look at it like a both sides problem. We do need to be vigilant. I think that's exactly right. And I think we need to call this stuff out when we see it and then turn to Don Jr., turn to Donald Trump, turn to members of the Republican Party and say, you better condemn this because it's nonsense, it's racist, it's garbage, and you need to say so.
So it's interesting you mentioned, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Nayyera.
Well, and the people, though, who are benefiting from this kind of talk, frankly, right now, are the Republican Party. They recognize that the black population, that millennials are going to outnumber aging boomers in the voting public at large. They are very intentionally looking to roll back voting rights in key states, to effectively in places like Florida, reinstituting a poll tax to be able to go vote. They benefit when the black vote, minority votes, and Democratic votes in general are suppressed. So this is part of their campaign of how they would win.
I want to go back to something that Jake mentioned. He talked about calling it out when you see it. Boyd, in the meantime, what should Democrats be doing? Is calling it out enough? Because we've already seen multiple 2020 candidates, including Biden, Warren, Buttigieg. They've all rushed to Harris's defense. But, you know, is that support enough? Is there anything that Democrats should be doing to more broadly fight these disinformation campaigns?
Well, far be it from me to give the Democrats advice on what they should be doing, but I do think they calling it out is obviously the right thing, and everybody should call it out. Again, across the board, everyone needs to call it out for what it is, and it's un-American. What they next need to do is to make sure that they don't become a party of grievance, because there's a positive message there. The people who watched the debates over the 2 nights saw that you had some very talented people talking about policy for a change, which was a good thing. And so I think they want to make sure that they don't get mired down in what they are against, because ultimately the American people want to know, what are you for? What's your vision besides a vision of being in office and in power? What is your vision for the future of the country? And so if anything, advice I would give there is to, yes, call it out, acknowledge it, and move it forward, but then what's the positive vision? How do you move it forward from here?
But boy, when you say you don't want them to become, or they should be wary of becoming the party of grievance, how do you tote that line? How do you not become the party of grievance, but also address it when egregious things are done and said?
Yeah, no, Morgan, you're actually right. You've got to call it out for what it is, but then it's always, okay, we're going to deal with this and, not but, and. We're going to deal with the racism and whether that's discrimination of any kind, whether that's against the LGBT community, whether that's through religious communities. We've seen all kinds of shootings in mosques, in Jewish temples, in Christian churches. I was just down in New Zealand, interviewed the imams from the mosque down there, but saw how communities were coming together, calling out the hate, calling out the people for what had happened, but then moving forward that, hey, we can come together on a host of issues in this country, all of the issues in this country, because that's what makes it uniquely American.
Which it's sad to see that this type of hate is trying to find its way into the mainstream of our American political discourse. Boyd, Nayyera, Jake, thank you so much for joining us, and please stick around. Up next.